I mean, they got to do some stuff because it's high sulfur oil, but if you sold it, what if they did that? They made a deal and said, that would pull the plug. If Chavez decided not to sell his oil to us, but to sell it to China instead, that'd pull the plug on 17% of the oil that comes into the United States. Do you think Barack Obama stands by and says, good riddance, you know? He just, what do you think the President of the United States does if Venezuela decides it isn't going to sell oil to us? I mean, you get the idea. There are big, titanic things that come into play here. This is a really big deal. The key fact is the discoveries peaked 44 years ago. The recent production is flat. While the prices are up, they were up. They'll be back up in the middle of next year, of this year. And energy imports, you can't, it's really hard to find an alternative for this stuff. This is kind of apples and oranges. But to give you a sense of it, it takes 750 nuclear power plants just to offset the energy that's the equivalent of the oil. So it's not like you can quickly transfer into some other kind of alternative. It's a big, big deal. It doesn't play. I mean, we're sitting here talking about the economy all the time, and you know, the oil and energy, it's a serious thing, but it's off to the side. It's going to come and play really big time. People talk about all kinds of scenarios coming out of the back end of this. When you think about oil, most of us think about transportation and everything, but everything that we see, if you sit in this room and walk your way around the room, everything that you see, including the human beings, are here because of energy of one sort or another, and a great part of it comes from oil. This carpet comes from oil. This suit probably is influenced and manufactured some way, the transportation costs and everything, and if you start to extract that out of the system, you've got big, big kind of problems. And so people build these crazy scenarios, all kinds of them. Civilization as we know it will come to an end sometime this century unless we find a way to live without fossil fuels. Well, I don't know about that, but it's something big. I mean, it's serious. This is nothing insignificant. You've got these same kind of relationships in terms of the financial situation. Guys like Warren Buffett, who, you know, ought to know what he's talking about, you know, says that the current financial system is highly unstable. He said this about 2 years ago. Highly complex instruments, derivatives, are time bombs and financial weapons of mass destruction. There are these derivatives in the financial system. You know what a derivative is? It's a casino bet. You know, it's a bet. It says, I'll bet you that this is going to go up, or I'll bet you that it's going to go down. There's no equity, there's no value into the thing. It's just a bet. And it's all kind of supported by confidence and psychology and, you know, feeling good and all of those kinds of things. If you didn't think the casino was going to pay off, would you bet in the casino? How many derivatives? What's the value of the derivatives in the system? Anybody got a guess? Well, well, it's like 60. It's hard to tell because there's no oversight and there's no rules, and the government doesn't have any control, and they don't have to. They can report anything that they want, and that's part of the problem. He says this is all estimates are inaccurate and all that kinds of stuff. They vary from 66 trillion to something like $700 trillion. I mean, it's just these giant numbers. Which is why he says it's kind of like a house of cards. And the day that you pass a certain point, the whole thing comes down. Literally. And it's not just Warren Buffett. It's George Soros. Unless financial fundamental reforms are implemented, the current system continues in crises. You need to understand that. Fundamental reforms. The problems that we have today are the product of the way we think and what we do, right? And so if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting, huh? And so if you don't change fundamentally what you're doing, you're going to get the same kind of thing. Are you interested in this kind of stuff? Read Nouriel Roubini. Read the RGE Monitor. Go to RGE Monitor on the web. Roubini's from New York University. He's been right on this thing from way back about this financial crisis. The biggest asset and credit bubble in human history is now going bust. And the overall credit losses are likely to be a staggering $2 trillion. Unless governments rapidly recapitalize and everything, the losses will mount faster than recapitalization, and it'll get worse. Robini says that, and then you get the New York Times here just on Monday or Sunday. And it says, rather than tackle the source of the problem, the people running the bailout desperately want to reinflate the credit bubble, prop up the stock market, and head off a recession. And their efforts are clearly failing, right? What are they doing? They're throwing money into the system. This is an old chart. I mean, this is a month old or something like that. And now they've thrown this much money, more than from 1985. They've thrown this much, and it's way up higher than that. And what have they done? They've done windfalls for banks. You probably didn't read about this, but what the Bush administration did was made this arbitrary decision that changed the tax laws for banks and gave them an extra $140 billion worth of benefits. And it turns out it's probably illegal, but everybody's scared to raise the issue because it'll exacerbate and screw up things that are already in place. Our present approach, I've been collecting these kinds of things. People keep talking about them. And it's like saying to the fat guy that the way to lose more weight is to eat more donuts, right? Or like calling the people who have destroyed the house to help rebuild it. You guys know this. Like giving a drunk a bottle of whiskey and telling him to drink until he's sober. I mean, you get the feeling. I mean, you've got a lot of folks, and they keep trying the same thing, and they're throwing money at it. And they're not dealing with the fundamentals. They're not changing it. That's a problem. That's a problem. What's happening? The debt is going up higher and higher. The home mortgage sector debt is 160% of what it was in 1998. And you've got similar kinds of 100%, twice as much in consumer credit and so on. And you've got huge kind of debts into the system. The stock market's going down. It's probably going to go down another 30% or something like that. You get this report in the New York Times on the 2nd that says the manufacturing continued to slump amongst the worst slowdown since the Great Depression. You get European data that's grim. This is kind of interesting. Toyota, if you remember, said that they're going to halt all production in Japan. The biggest downturn in automakers in the world's shutting their factories for 11 days. Here's what's interesting. Chinese magazine, the state-run Chinese magazine, warns that social unrest would follow in China because of this. It's running across the whole planet because it's a big system and it's all interconnected in ways that we don't even begin to understand. So what you've got is exponential curves in population. You've got exponential curves in terms of the amount of money into the system. You have an exponential curve in terms of the way oil that we've used. And let me tell you, and then you don't need me to tell you, is that stuff doesn't continue forever. It stops. It collapses. It comes over. It stops. And what we're starting to see is the confluence of these different kind of trends all coming together at the same time. And what it's going to do is fundamentally change the way we live. We're at this interesting kind of point where the indicators say that there's a whole new world that's coming downstream. We haven't talked about climate change. Climate change, here's the conventional wisdom. You've all seen this, the Al Gore kind of thing that says that here's the CO2 level and it's gone up, and now the temperature has been this long and it's going to go up, and the place is going to get hotter and hotter. Well, it's not getting hotter and hotter. The last 2 years it hasn't gotten hotter, and so now there's some questions about it, and there's other kind of issues. But there are places where it gets hotter. There's other places where it's been cooler. And the places where it gets hotter, you get these positive feedback loops up in the northern hemisphere, up in the Arctic area, right? And so you get decreasing snow and ice, decreases the light and energy reflection, so it gets brown instead of light, you know, and so it gets warmer, and that makes global warming, which then goes to global warming. And so you do get these kinds of feedback kind of loops. So it's a serious kind of problem. We do have climate change.